Thank you so much for joining us today, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much. Looking back on the 20th anniversary of the Beautiful Letdown, it's hard to believe that it's been 20 years since I first heard Meant to Live. That's insane. But what a timeless song from a timeless album. What memories come to mind from that time in your career?
Wow, so many memories. I was talking about this the other day with a friend of mine, that when you're younger, there's like there's kind of a wastefulness that is also beautiful. So that was a time that was really exciting for us. Those songs took us all over the world. And I think, through traveling, I've grown to appreciate travel more since then, and, going to other places and stuff. But at the time, being barely 20, the things that I was excited about were pretty simple, like finding a good curb to skate, you know what I mean? And just, being with my best friends and getting to play these songs. And, looking back, we got some pretty wild experiences for a 20-year-old to absorb. But, it was kind of all the only version I had of being young and 20. And it was a pretty great, beautiful, exciting time.
Now, 20 years later, what makes this particular album special for you? What inspired you guys to go ahead and re-record the album?
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a special album for us. We've been taking these songs all over the world, or they've been taking us all over the world, for 20 years. And I think I'm really thankful that the songs that really blew up for us, songs like Dare You to Move, Meant to Live, they still mean a lot to us. These are songs that are very special and personal to us, and they've only grown with the telling. They've only grown with the memories that we've attached to them for 20 years, So
yeah,
these are songs that were written in a bedroom at 2 a.m. trying to figure out life. And now they have all these other stories and memories attached to them. People coming up to us after shows telling us, this was the song that played at my wedding. This is the song that came on the radio when I was about to kill myself. This is just amazing, wild stories that are much bigger than four surfers from San Diego playing rock and roll, And so I think the songs have grown with us, and we're very thankful that we still get to play songs that mean a lot to us.
Re-records sometimes provide an opportunity to change things that you maybe didn't like about the original version. Was there anything about the original record that the band was maybe eager to update and improve upon with these re-records?
Yeah, it was a really kind of something we talked about quite a bit. I think as artists, you're always trying to create something new, and the idea of recreating something you've done before is always less appealing. But at the same time, I think we landed on trying to find versions of these songs that are true to the original with just little updates. Where we saw the opportunity. We've been playing these songs for a while, some of these songs more than others, and there's little updates that we've done along the way that felt like they were still very much in the character and spirit of the original. But, it's funny, like growing up, you're always learning something new and you're always forgetting something. And this was a chance to kind of hold the two ends of that intention and speak into something that you did a while ago with some new things that you've learned, but then also go back and pick up a few things that you dropped along the way. I think one of the big updates of the new version, though, that was apparent right off the bat was just how much John has grown as a singer. I think he was just kind of coming into his kind of finding himself as a singer when we made that album, and there's a special quality to that. But his voice has only grown since then, and it was great to kind of hear that on these new versions.
Definitely. And that's something I noticed too, listening through it. They sound just as timeless as the original record did, but you're absolutely right. One of the things that is just so much stronger is John's voice. It sounds so good on that record. I'm curious though, what did the early days look like? I think you guys were originally called Chin Up, right? What was the story behind that name?
Yeah, we started as a 3-piece. I was still in high school. John and Chad were in college, and we were playing music because it was fun. I don't think any of us saw music as a viable career path. None of the bands that we grew up idolizing in our scene were ever able to do it as a full-time job. These are bands that came up in the San Diego scene, and they're playing in backyards and garages, and it's a very DIY scene that we come from. And so I think that was the version of music that was modeled for us. And so we were kind of following that path of playing music because we loved it, and playing it wherever we got asked to play it, whether it was a coffee shop or a bar or a church. That we just loved playing music together. And so we didn't give the name a lot of thought. We had a kind of a best friend amongst our group. He wasn't in the band, but he almost was, just because he was kind of like our spirit animal, our mascot. His name Willis Chin, and he was just one of those guys that was always making us laugh, and one of the best guys you'll ever meet. And so it was kind of a lighthearted way to throw him into the band name. He was at all the shows anyways. And then when we actually got a record deal, indie record deal, which was completely surprising to us, we decided, maybe let's think a little harder about our name. And so we switched the name to Switchfoot, but we named our first album The Legend of Chin, and put a bunch of Willis Chin's baby photos and childhood photos in the album.
Now, have you guys ever thought about maybe revisiting songs from those earlier albums and updating them the same way you did with the Beautiful Letdown?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We're still kind of fresh off of this experience, and it was definitely enjoyable, but it was also a pretty big challenge. It was a pretty big undertaking, to really make sure that we were doing the original version justice. I think the worst thing in the world to do would be to spend a year working on something and have people not like it as much as the original. And so we were really we put a lot of thought and effort into it, and I think we're excited about our next endeavor being something new, working on some new songs. But who knows if there's more re-records in our future. Probably too early to say at this point.
After those first three albums, where was the band at mentally when you guys began writing that fourth album? What was the mentality going into writing that record?
Well, I think we all thought that it was our last record. Most of the bands that we grew up watching and going to shows, they never even made a third record. It seemed like it was kind of like one or two records and done. And we had made three, and there had been some exciting things that happened along the way, but at the same time, we were barely able to sell 100 tickets in a few markets, following our third album. And so it was an exciting thing when you're 18 or 19 years old, but not exactly like a sustainable career, so it's kind of that point in life where our drummer Chad had just had a kid, and it's that, okay, what does the next 10 years of our lives look like type of questions that we were asking ourselves. And so we went into the studio to make one more album, and it wasn't even with the goal of, let's see if we can make this last forever. It was just, let's see if we can make the record that we have always wanted to make, so that there's no regrets, so that, when we move on to whatever's next in our lives, we look back at this album and that's the album that we always wanted to make, something that we're just completely proud of and captures who we are right now. And so we did that. We did that without a label. We recorded it in 17 days, including mixing, which is extremely fast, with a producer named John Fields that we had just met. And we did it up in LA. And, it was so exciting to work at that fast pace. We really thrive off of that. We had a bunch of stations built in the studio, and we were just literally running from station to station, drums, bass, guitars. And after 17 days, we had a complete album recorded, mixed, and we started getting calls from major labels that had caught wind of the album. And it was, everything kind of moved quickly for a moment. It was kind of surreal to suddenly be having conversations with major labels, which was something that, in those days, that was like the holy grail. Very few bands, especially from San Diego, were ever in those conversations. So, we ended up signing with Columbia Records, and we felt like we had somehow just won the lottery, and they flew us to New York to play for kind of all the big wigs at the label. And, we're flying high at this point. We can't believe that this is happening. And halfway through our second song, the head of the label walks out and says, I don't hear any hits. Why do we keep signing this garbage? And dropped us. And
Oh my God.
the song he walked out on was a song called "Dare You to Move." And
It's one of
and it
your
was this
biggest
real
songs.
existential. Yeah, it was this real existential moment of like, okay, well, that's what he thinks. That's his opinion. What's our opinion? What do we think of these songs? What do we think of this record? Now we're back to we're where we've always been, which is an indie band, without a major label. And so we decided to put it out anyways on an indie label. And then a couple million albums later, Columbia decided to pick the album back up because it was still in their system under contract. And I guess it was I'm really thankful for that whole experience. It really kind of galvanized us as a band, forced us to get our heads right, because I think any creative endeavor, there's going to be people that get it and people that don't. And it can be really cart before the horse to be making music that you hope someone else will like when you have no idea. The best and truest thing you can do as an artist is to make music that resonates with you. And that, I think we did exactly what we set out to do with that album. We made an album that we were proud of. And I'm just really thankful that here we are 20 years later talking about, how that album kind of went around the world and ended up in a lot of people's ears.
And I think what really helped with that around that time was the soundtrack for A Walk to Remember. Your music played a really huge role in that film. What are your memories from that time on collaborating on the soundtrack?
Yeah. As a band, there's things that come in and out of your life that are exciting, and it's hard to know in the moment what are the things that are gonna move the needle or resonate, on a larger scale. And that was kind of one of those things. Mandy Moore was kind of an up and coming singer and actor, and has become, really incredible at both through the years. But at the time, she was just coming up. I don't think any of us had any idea the impact that film was going to have. We'd been in other films and TV shows before, and when that opportunity came, it was exciting, and they kept adding more and more of our songs. It started with one song, Only Hope, and ended up with, I think, 5 of our songs on the soundtrack. And, it was one of those surreal experiences that we had no idea the impact that it was going to have, that it really opened the door for a lot of people to our music, particularly around the world. There's places like Philippines, that we would have never been if it wasn't for that movie, where that movie, had a really big impact over there, and opened doors to all sorts of international markets that we would have never visited otherwise. And really thankful that happened. I think that was a great example of music being used kind of for a common purpose. Sometimes you see music kind of as a fish out of water in like a truck commercial or something, and it doesn't really resonate with what the song was written about. But that was a really heartfelt movie, and I think a lot of the songs really resonated with the story arc. And I like the film.
Yeah, and Only Hope is at such a pivotal point in the movie. It's when the male lead falls in love with the female lead in the movie, because she sings it in the play, and it's just a central part of the film, and it's your guys' song, which is just absolutely insane. You mentioned something about the Philippines, which actually brought me to a question I wanted to ask you. Theology and philosophy feel like core themes for Switchfoot. How has traveling and performing in different parts of the world shaped your perspective as musicians? How has it shaped your theological and philosophical perspectives?
Yeah, I love traveling. I think when you do something a lot, you either get really jaded and cynical about it, or you love it more and more and more. And I'm thankful that travel is one of those things for me that, I'm going to be a lifelong traveler, whether I'm playing music or not. I just love seeing other places, meeting new people, new cultures, new languages. There's something intoxicating about that to me, feeling a sense of smallness in a big place, and also a sense of belonging in somewhere you've never been. Those two polar opposites are kind of what is at play when you travel. And I think, traveling broadens your perspective, gets you outside of the things that feel important in our little bubbles, and you see a bigger picture and a bigger story. And all of that has you've been very central to kind of the musical journey we've been on too, and the songs we write, and I think one of the biggest goals we've always had in our music is to bring people together from different walks of life, from different beliefs, and to find a commonality. We're much more interested in what we have in common than what we have, than the differences that we have, and that's something that you get with travel, and that certainly has, we've brought that into our music along the way.
Now, would you say that traveling the world and experiencing the love and support of so many different cultures has enriched your spirituality and faith? And if so, how so?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, as a believer, to travel the world and see what that looks like in Bangladesh, what that looks like, what it means to be a believer in Australia, in South Africa, in Mexico. I think it broadens your perspective of the journey of faith that I'm on, that we're all on, and that it can. A lot of times we mistake culture for faith, and there's cultural differences, but at its core, keeping the main thing is something that I think traveling and seeing how that is lived out in other places, it becomes evident.
Now, switching gears a little bit, creative differences are pretty much inevitable when it comes to throwing a bunch of musicians in a small room. Were there any times over the years when working on either the Beautiful Letdown or other albums where you guys had disagreements? And if so, what do you feel are the best ways to overcome conflict in a band?
I do believe that some element of conflict is necessary for good art. I think, you may write a song or two that somehow sidesteps conflict, but I think as a body of work, as a career, conflict is how we grow. We don't grow through easy experiences. We grow through struggle. And within a band, the conflict is necessary to elevating anyone's ideas. That's why you form a band. That's certainly part of why you form a band is you need other opinions. I think that's what makes life interesting is people that disagree with you. And so I think we've learned to respect the conflict. Whereas maybe in the early days, we have brothers in the band. My brother and I, there's always going to be conflict. We've refined conflict over years and years of living together, and we've learned to respect it. I think when we started this band, we weren't as good at it, and I think we've realized that if there's friction, if I have an idea and John has an idea, and they're differing points of views, that means that there's something better that we haven't found yet. And it also means that we both care. I think the moment there's no conflict, it means, usually that one of us has just kind of checked out, which is the worst thing that could ever happen to any band, to any group of people that are trying to do something that's great and trying to grow. Is there's going to be conflict. You're going to be pushing each other. Sometimes that growth is painful, and there's something better waiting on the other side of it.
And it is special for you to be in a band with your brother. Families rarely get their due appreciation for enduring the absence of their loved ones while we, the audience, benefit from their presence on tour. How have you balanced your personal life with the demands of being in a high-profile rock band? And how would you say these demands have kind of changed over the years?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's been important for John and I to have things that we share outside of the band. And I think that's not just true for John and I. That's certainly within the three of us who have been on this journey since the beginning, John, Chad, and I, having surfing as something that we all love to do that has very little to do with Switchfoot has been something that's kept us together. You know, when we're not on tour, we're still meeting up most mornings to go for a surf before we go into the studio to work on anything. And I think, you know, having that as an anchor point that's outside of the bizarre reality of the stage and being in a rock band has been very grounding for us.
And speaking of family, if I can say, your son Jet is extremely talented. What has it been like watching him grow as a musician and follow in your footsteps? When did you first realize he had that musical talent?
Yeah, well, thank you. I definitely agree. I'm a proud dad. It's been interesting because, you know, he's been coming on tour with me since I started bringing him when he was 4 years old, you know, grabbing a sleeping bag and throwing him on the tour bus. And we always have had the best times on tour together. But he was really not interested in the music at all. You know, it was all about, can we get through sound check and so we can go out and have adventures and go explore. And, you know, and then he'd fall asleep when the show happened. So it was much more about the adventures that we would have while we're on tour than it was about the music. And about maybe 2 years ago, he really discovered his own love for music in a big way, you know, and started writing these songs. And I was just blown away by how good the songs were. You know, he didn't really know a lot about music. He didn't have a lot of training because he had just not been interested in that. We tried a few times over the years, and if my kids have taught me anything, timing is everything. And, you know, I think every kid's different, but for my kids, trying to force surfing or music or any of my passions on them doesn't work as well as kind of letting them be themselves and find the things they're passionate about, and then reinforcing and encouraging the things that they're excited about. So when he discovered his own passion for music, kind of separate from me and Switchfoot and all the times that he'd been on tour with us, that was a really special thing, you know, to kind of see it become his.
Now, do you guys ever collaborate? Do you help him with songwriting, or is he pretty much contained in his own little bubble?
I always tell him that the ideas he'll come up with are way better than mine. And so, you know, he will ask me for an opinion here or there, or, you know, to help him kind of produce a song that's already pretty far along, you know, to kind of get it to the finish line. And I'm always happy to, you know, honored to jump in. But I like to see him kind of go as far as he can first, because I really like the way his brain works.
It's funny too, because, you know, sometimes when you listen to the son of a musician, you'll notice that they're kind of following in their father's footsteps. It sounds similar. His music couldn't be much more different from Switchfoot if you tried. It's a lot more like, one thing I heard almost had disco elements in it. You know, you guys have kind of had some dancier songs, but, you know, I've always considered you guys to be more like a rock band. So it's kind of fun to see how he's probably inspired by his dad, but he's not copying his dad, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's his own person, and you know, he's turning me on to new artists all the time that he's listening to, and he's in that time of life where you know, you're listening to music constantly. You're passing music from your friend to your friends, and you know, it's great to see him just expand every day.
Since we're on a lighthearted kick here, one of the things that I feel is the easiest way to keep the heart and soul healthy is through laughter. If you can think back over your long career at Switchfoot, what are some of your funniest memories with the band?
Yeah, there's quite a few. The first one that came to mind just now was our first tour post-COVID. It was very indicative of the whole post-COVID experience. Now that I think back to it, you know, it's just kind of cathartic. Here we go. We're coming out of this long dark tunnel, and now we're we're back together again, and here we go. We're walking on stage, and so it's our very first night of tour, first tour post COVID, and I'm walking on stage, and we had told our lighting guy to keep it real dark. It was so dark, and we had I'd forgotten we had added another riser to our stage set, so I wasn't used to where it was, and I walked straight into the corner of the riser and did like a Superman. Somehow I stayed on my feet, but my shin got like a big hole in it. It bled through my sock, and my pants had like a blood stain on them by the end of the show, But that was how the first show started, was with me just falling right across the stage. And I think it's, it's kind of indicative of the false starts that we had as a society coming back from that strange and interesting times. It wasn't all we're back. There was some false starts along the way.
You're in kindred company with the walking into things. I swear to God, probably every 2 weeks, I find another black and blue on my leg that I don't know where I got it from. Probably because I walked into the corner of the bed frame or something. I'm always getting hurt. So I think it's funny. I'm just glad that it wasn't worse. I'm glad you didn't fall off the stage.
I got a good chip off my bass too. Like took a splinter off of the corner of my bass, and I love those things. My basses at this point, the ones I've brought on tour, they all are dented and bruised and dinged up, and I think that's how instruments should be. They've got stories to tell, and so now whenever I see that dent in the corner of my bass, it gives me a little chuckle.
And how has your bass setup changed over the years? What are some of your favorite additions to your gear?
Well, it's been fun. The re-recording of Beautiful Letdown kind of brought me back to falling in love with the bass that I hadn't played since then. It's an old Music Man, and I don't know why I ever stopped playing them. They're great basses and really unique sound. So in preparing for this Beautiful Letdown tour, I've been playing it a lot more. I'm going to play it tonight. And I think, it'll be my main bass, for this tour coming up, which is fun because it's a bass I haven't played in 20 years.
Stingrays are very near and dear to my heart. It's funny, like you look at a certain bass guitar or something that happened to like a chip on it and it brings back memories. One of my favorite bass guitars that I have, it's a Fender, and I say that in air quotes because it's one of those that are knockoffs. But what I like about it is I got it used at an auction. It's completely made of wood. It has like a natural wood finish, but there's little cigarette burns all over it. It's the most janky looking bass, but the character and sound of it is beautiful. But I just laugh every time I see it because that poor bass was, put through the ringer by whoever had it before. He abused it with cigarettes and everything. So it's just funny when you said that about the chip in the bass, it made me think about that. So what is one of the most memorable fan experiences you had? Because you guys have met so many different fans over the years. What is one of the most memorable experiences of a fan that stood out to you?
I think something that makes our band unique is we really embrace kind of the chaos of live music, that anything could happen. We make a different set list every night, and we rarely follow that set list when we get on stage because the crowd they're equal participants and they're co-creators in the evening, right? And so I'm thinking back to the first time that I remember someone holding up a sign asking if they could come play a song with us. It would have been about 20 years ago. It was definitely when we were touring the Beautiful Letdown, and it was in Little Rock, Arkansas. And there was a kid, it looked like he might have been 10, maybe 12 years old, really little kid. I'm holding up a sign, can I play Meant to Live with you? And so John brought him up, and, with the guitar strap, I mean, he was like half our height, with the guitar strap, the guitar is like basically hitting the ground. And, this is, to my knowledge, the first time we'd done this. So I just have no idea how this is going to go. And, then he launches into the riff by himself and just absolutely slayed it. Like, I don't even know how his fingers could do those bends, on that guitar. It was so huge on him. But he crushed it. And the crowd just went absolutely nuts. And we've since met him a few times at other shows. Now he's obviously full grown and shreds of the guitar, really cool dude. But it's cool to have that memory of the first time that we had ever invited someone on stage. And since then, we've had a lot of those experiences, some of my favorite moments on stage, and it doesn't always go as well as you hope it would. But that's, I think that's part of what we love of live music is it's not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be human and dangerous. And there should be an element of risk involved, and you get to the end of the song and we all, on stage and off, we all feel like we were a part of something that will never happen again.
I love it when bands do that. I think it's one of the most magical things having a fan come up on stage and perform. One of my favorite instances of that, it was actually a viral video a couple of years back. Logic brought like this 10-year-old kid onto the stage to rap along with him. And it was the cutest thing because, some of Logic's songs are parental advisory. So the particular song that this kid was going to rap along to did have some inappropriate language. And it was the cutest thing. Before launching into it, he goes, he shouts to his mom in the crowd. He's like, "Can I say those words?" It was so cute. But actually, Beautiful Letdown is not the only thing that's soon to celebrate its 20th anniversary. Bro-Am is soon to be 20 years old as well. Are there any plans in the works for that?
Yeah. That's another one of those that I really can't believe it's been 20 years. And I can't believe, how that event has grown. It started with a simple idea. We were on a flight back from Australia, missing our hometown. And we just decided, what if we threw a party on the beach, surf contest, and raising money for at-risk and homeless youth in our community. And the music part of it was kind of almost an afterthought. It was mainly a surf contest that first year, which was kind of hearkening back to some of our earliest memories at that beach in the summertime. We'd ride our bikes down there and at Moonlight Beach with some friends, and we'd throw $5 into a hat and we'd judge each other and have our own surf contest, winner take all kind of thing. I never won, by the way. But this was like, okay, well, let's do that, only instead of someone taking home the hat at the end of the day, just give it to the kids in our community, the charities that are supporting these kids. And, I think we were young enough and dumb enough to think that it would work, that it actually did. And it's just grown to be this huge event that the whole community has wrapped their arms around. And, it makes me really proud of my hometown and the love and support that everyone is showing kids who are trying to graduate high school homeless, which is, that's a season of life that's hard enough as it is without knowing where your next meal is coming from, where you're going to sleep that night. So it's a really special event. Coming up on 20 years, we've got some things planned. We just had our 19th annual. And so the wheels are already spinning of what we're going to do next year to really celebrate that whole journey. Yeah, that's a great question. I think going back through the Beautiful Letdown has really given all of us kind of an appreciation of this journey we've been on, not just as a band, but as a community. There's a lot of people that have supported us along the way and, given us a floor to crash on or, come to the show every time we've been in town. And, it really feels like a family. And that's something that I think is unique and special. We started doing these live streams during COVID that we've continued. And it's kind of been this way to even further kind of create this sense of community, where once a month we gather and hang out and, laugh about the journey we've been on. So it's been a really special season for us of seeing our fans kind of come together and create friendships with each other from around the world. And that's something that we're really excited about when you talk legacy. I think anytime I hear of friendships, marriages, families that were, started around a Switchfoot show, that's like probably, the biggest honor that we could ever have as a band is to see a bigger story being written around these songs. That's what gets me excited about what's next for us, and I think coming off of re-recording a bunch of songs, we're all really excited about recording new songs, so we're just starting to have those conversations of what is the next albums? What does that look like? What do we want to sing about? But we're definitely energized and blown away by the reception that the Beautiful Letdown, our version, has had, and that's given us a lot of wind in our sails.
Excellent. I do want to thank you so much for taking the time out to speak with us today. Absolutely been a fan of you guys for over 20 years, so having the opportunity to finally speak to you is awesome. Before we go, is there just anything else that you would like to add to the fans that are listening in today?
I just want to say thank you. This is a season, in our life as a band and individually, where we're really reflecting on the beautiful journey that we've been on, not just as a band, but with this whole community, and so much thankfulness for all the highs and lows along the way, and for everyone who's sung along with us for not just the last 20 years since Beautiful Letdown, but 25 years since we've been a band. And just a lot of gratitude. Thank you so much.